Ah, my intrepid explorers of the unknown. George Booza here, the voice of Beast from X-Men, the animated series in X-Men 97. Oh, my stars and garters, an adventure awaits at the Uncanny Experience. We're commandeering the Minneapolis Club this September 28th and 29th, metamorphosing it into the Grand Xavier Institute. Join us for a symposium of panels, a mutant marketplace, esteemed celebrity meet and greets, an illustrious cosplay contest, the exclusive Hellfire Club, all followed by the after party in the mansion. Procure your tickets at theuncannyexperience.com. Together, let's leap into the boundless realms of imagination and knowledge. Get your tickets now at theuncannyexperience.com.
Bum bum bottom 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 bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bum bum bottom bum bum doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 doobie doobie da 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 bum bum bottom bum bum bottom ba da da 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 ba ba. You are now in session with the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast. I'm Lisa Gullickson.
And I'm Brad Gullickson.
And each month we evaluate a different iconic romance within the four-color realm. And in this episode, San Diego Comic-Con is oxygen. It inspires, it moves, it enthralls, it awakens. It doesn't need to be Hall H or an SDCC exclusive or a brush with celebrity. It can be a half-assed gender-bend Lilu or the pirate from the Redemption Room. Comic-Con uplifts. But underneath that crust of fandom, sometimes Comic-Con lies. In our Creator Corner, we're talking to comics icon Gail Simone about Misty from 2000 AD.
Yeah. We've wanted to have this conversation from, I think, the very beginning of Comic Book Couples Counseling, and we're thrilled to be having it now. Or more accurately, to be having it in the future, because we're recording this intro the day before we leave for San Diego, and we haven't actually had this chat with Gail Simone.
And you guys know how much I hate promoting an episode before it's in the can, so we are flying very close to the sun for me right now.
As we talked about last week, and I think even the week before that, we desperately planned our family vacation and San Diego Comic-Con back to back, so it's made our recording schedule very tricky this year, and we've never been a podcast that has the skills to bank conversations.
Yeah, the second we stop recording, we're like, let's get this to the people. They want it now.
So I think for other podcasters, the way we're doing it right now might just be like business as usual, but for us, it gives us the squidgies.
I feel like I am threading a needle right now.
Yeah. And like part of me feels like, well, the Gail Simone conversation could fall through. We're supposed to have this chat on Thursday, but if it doesn't happen, then no one's ever going to listen to this intro. So if you are listening to this intro, it happened, and you are going to hear Gail Simone real darn soon.
Isn't it nice when a plan comes together?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so excited to have this specific conversation with Gail, because Gail has a ton going on right now. Uncanny X-Men. She has a Red Sonja novel on the way, a Crab Louie one-shot with Dark Horse Comics. She just did some Action Comics for DC. But here we are talking about the Misty 2024 special, in which she's written 3 short stories that revitalize this iconic character from the late 1970s.
I had never heard of Misty before. Had you heard of Misty before?
No.
So, of course, I had to do some deep research. I went to Wikipedia. And on Wikipedia, it says that Misty was one of the few British girls' comics, and it was a horror comic, but it was also popular with boys. I have not read the original Misty, but from what I can tell by looking at the covers, it was full of babes.
Yeah.
So I can see why it would appeal to all genders.
Yeah, and it was the creation of Pat Mills, right? So, I really am curious, and 2000 AD will be republishing the original Misty comics in some anthologies, and I'm going to be picking those up for sure, because this is an era of comics that I love. I love, Vampirella comics, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious to see if Misty is more girl forward than, say, Vampirella or the other like Warren Publishing titles like Eerie or Creepy. I mean, obviously, the 2024 Misty special comes from the perspective of Gail Simone, but it still sort of trades in the tropes of the 70s male gaze.
Lately, I have been totally fixated on the romance comics of the 60s and 70s, as evidenced by my ever-growing collection of these comics.
When we were driving up from the Outer Banks and going through Virginia, we stopped at Trilogy Comics in Virginia Beach, and you bought so many.
And I had to restrain myself.
I don't think I've ever seen you in one go purchase so many comics, and we're about to go to San Diego Comic-Con.
I know. Like, part of me is going, like, doing the math of, like, can I not go through the long boxes? Can I not buy back issues in San Diego now? Because I blew a huge wad and, like, of money.
It was the hottest thing I've ever seen.
But to me, what has me so fixated on romance comics is because they're being marketed towards women, but these women are constantly, as we are today, grappling with how to balance our autonomy, our individuality. We want to feel self-empowered, but a lot of us still want to appeal to the male gaze. And
those comics are primarily written by dudes.
And drawn by dudes.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to decipher. Like, it's impossible to tell, like, are these women being drawn to be aspirational to women? Or are these women being drawn to suit the male gaze for a different type of consumer? And horror comics, when the horror comic meets the romance comic, that's where this shit gets really messy. Like, I love this Charleston comic called Haunted Love.
Yeah.
And it is a horror comic / romance comic. And these stories are ridiculous. Like, my favorite one, I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, is where this male teacher goes to work with this difficult student, and it turns out that this is like a 12-year-old girl trapped in a grown woman's body. And over the course of his tutelage, she matures mentally and emotionally. But then they have their first kiss, and then the next morning she turns back into a mental 12-year-old. And it is the grossest thing. And it makes you go like, who is this for?
Right.
And so, like, that's what I'm bringing to this first read of Misty, where these women are so beautiful, and their beauty and their danger is central to the theme of this book. And I'm so excited to have that conversation with Gail Simone about comics and the male gaze.
Yeah. I'm really curious to hear what Gail's about to say. Again,
We have no idea.
It's so weird to record an intro having no clue what you're about to listen to.
I feel like I'm in a hot air balloon and I have no idea where we're going to land.
The Misty 2024 special is out now from 2000 AD. It contains 4 stories in total, 3 of them written by Gail Simone. One of them is illustrated and written by Letty Wilson. That's called The Cracked Glass, and it concludes the Misty 2024 special. But Gail's stories are 11 Lonely Deaths, The Pub at the End of the Road, and Happy Birthday, Mrs. Parker. And without going too much into spoiler territory, the first story, 11 Lonely Deaths, is kind of playing with some Zodiac concepts.
It's a slasher type.
It's a serial killer story.
Right.
But it's contemporary because it's following a podcaster who is at a lake where 11 murders occurred, and he wants to exploit these deaths of these women for his gain, and he runs into a woman named Misty, and things go south.
Yeah.
The Pub at the End of the Road is gorgeously illustrated by Aly Fell.
Yes.
It's about a young barkeep or the daughter of a pub owner who is just tortured by her dad.
Being told that she is ugly and worthless.
And every dude around her is, pinching her and squeezing her and wanting to take hold of her. And things happen.
And then David Cassidy shows up.
And then the final story from Gail Simone is Happy Birthday, Mrs. Parker. And it is illustrated by Marianna Ignazzi. And it's set in an old folks' home. And it follows the nurses that take care of the patients in this facility. And things go bad.
And these are 3 extremely different stories. But they all play on the conflict between how women are perceived versus how women actually are.
Right.
But even the modern story has this patina of like late 70s, 80s. That vibe is inherent to the story. And I just really dig it.
Yeah. I really like the art. I like you said, the vibe, like this comic's got vibes.
Yeah.
And it begins with the cover from Tula Lotte.
Gorgeous.
Give me a print of
Talk
that
about
cover.
aspirational. If I could be as smooth, I want to be so perfectly smooth like a Tula Lotte lady.
So, I don't know, is there anything else we need to say? Because there's no, thematic catch-up we have to do because we
have
don't
no idea
know what the themes of this conversation are going to be.
But yeah, I hope it's those themes. I hope I can remember what I said today.
I'm very excited to have this conversation with Gail. I imagine I'm going to kick back and just listen to the two of you talk about old 60s and 70s romance comics.
Yeah, and then I ask, why are all of these ladies the same dress size?
I can't wait. So let's put a pause on our intro and listen to our conversation with Gail Simone, and then meet us on the other side for our outro so we can tell you what's coming up next week because we've got a lot of really cool stuff planned.
Yay!
Doopy doopy. Bum bum ba da bum bum ba da ba.
I'm going to get down low.
Okay. So I wanted to start. I loved Misty.
Oh, good.
Are you going to do the thing?
I want to just say,
Okay.
here we are at San Diego Comic-Con at the Rebellion booth with Gail Simone talking Misty.
Yay!
Extremely excited to talk Misty with you.
I loved it so much, and it is so plugged into what I'm geeking out about right now, and the rabbit holes I'm jumping into.
Really? Now I want you to tell me more.
Yes.
What is it that you liked about it?
So currently I've been obsessed with romance comics of the 60s and 70s because they were marketed to women specifically, and yet they're trying to figure out well, what's aspirational to women? What do women want to read? And it's so inextricable. Oops, I dropped my notebook. It's so inextricable from the male gaze. And so you get these stories and you get these ads where they're well, you gotta diet, and that guy who seems unavailable, if you play your wiles, you can attain him. And so the idea of Misty being this comic that was written and geared towards women, and the marketing and going well, and boys liked it too.
Yeah.
So does any of that connect with you? I hope so.
It completely does. And when I first started writing Birds of Prey, that's what I wanted to do. That was my goal. It was I want this to be for girls and women, but I want guys to like it too, hopefully. And whenever you have something that's really strong, it's made for women, and guys read it too, it's good for them. I always say that for them to read stories about strong female characters that are getting out and taking care of stuff, doing things together, not just fighting or competing for men and all that, it's really good for them to experience that as well. And so, Misty's original goals and tones fits right into that with me.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? The idea, was there messaging in that original Misty? Because I haven't read the original Misty yet. Was there messaging in the original Misty that you're like, okay, that is the core, principles of Misty, or this is what Misty, is teaching to
Right.
big quotes?
Well, Misty did not have a huge backstory. She was the host of the stories that appeared in the books. So she was the host that wore the cool clothes, had a cool vibe. She was pretty, she was sexy, but in a way that women could appreciate too. It wasn't like offensive. It wasn't geared for, as you said, the particular male gaze at that time or in the 80s. It was just beautiful, classy, lovely. And so, and that's like, as a writer of female characters, I'm always thinking about, we want these characters to have sex lives. We want them to be vibrant. We want them to be sexy. We want them to be cool. We want them to be all kinds of things, but not the same thing for every character. And not to, sex is part of our lives too, but it's definitely, you can see a perspective change. And I noticed that when I'm listening to the newer music by the really top female artists too. The perspective on love and sex and desire and stuff, completely different from love songs that we've heard in the past. And it's that much of a difference in this medium too, where you're seeing a whole different side, a whole different viewpoint from what you've seen before. And I love that. I love twisting things, turning them on their head, making them, people think about things a little bit differently, and Misty's a great character for that.
I love that this is a horror comic. Like, I feel like women have a special claim to the horror space. I think that there's nuance to horror that I don't think men can understand.
Been exposed to, but
right.
yeah.
I loved where you started the first story, 11 Lonely Deaths, with that opening page that starts with, beauty is oxygen, and ends with beauty lies, where beauty is this kind of medium through which we can get our meet our needs or influence someone. Was that theme of beauty and the two-sidedness something inherent to Misty in the beginning, or is it something you brought?
I think that's something these characters that have existed for a long time or that were created a long time ago. They have core qualities that are important and resonate, and that's why they've existed like they have for a long time. I'm talking about Wonder Woman and Batgirl and characters like that. But they do need to be updated because the world is different. We speak out more now. Our voices are heard more often. Not always by everyone, and so we need to update that for the times now. And I think that fits perfectly in with her character, but might not have been, expressed in the way that we do in this story.
We were listening to your entry in the 2018 Thrillcast with Steve, and you were talking about your process and how you are a thematic forward writer. So when you decided to take on the assignment of Misty, what are the themes that you were hunting for each of these stories, and then what's the grander theme that you were looking for?
Well, I think, these are short stories. Like when it was announced in the panel just a few minutes ago that there's going to be a 4-issue miniseries, and those will be longer stories that will be, contained and we'll be able to expand a little. In this Misty special, they're short stories. And so I think about what I'm seeing in our world today, what I think is important, what this character could uphold or we could explore with. And the thing like you were discussing earlier with the beauty, I think that's really important. And it's also how it's changed, from when I was a teenager to a young woman, throughout time, and how it is today, and how many women are so much more vocal about their feelings about it. And so I just think that this character and a horror theme, a horror story is perfect to explore these kinds of things that we're dealing with in our real world that are scary. And I love the psychological aspect of it. So with Misty, there will be monsters, but I'm going to be telling psychological stories that have a little retro vibe. She's kind of going to be able to move in and out through time, so we're going to be able to tell lots of different kinds of horror stories with her. I just want them to be creepy and cool and sexy in all the right ways, and linger with you, not just the horror part of it, but what the story is about.
I feel a lot of the retro vibes in the art, and you've been paired with absolutely wonderful, amazing artists.
Definitely.
And the beauty of these women is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
They're all gorgeous, but they all are it goes back to that like what was aspirational, is that aspirational from the male gaze, or is that an aspirational, universally aspirational? Is there's a lot of women of the same size, you know what I mean? Where there's not a lot of variety in going that beauty that is so dangerous and is inherent in every woman.
And this is what upsets me about this whole thing. It's going to be hard to probably narrow this down, but not everyone is turned on by the same thing. But our media almost brainwashes people into it. And so that, when I look back, at my life and the different eras that I've seen go through what the media has done with women, it's very painful and very hard to reconcile that that's really how we treated people and how we do treat people, and of all genders, not just women. But it's why can't we have a variety of what turns people on and what is sexy, and show different sides of things? Just having one size, one shape, and that everybody's doing plastic surgery to try to meet that, or they're depressed or have mental health problems because they cannot possibly meet that standard. They can't be 5'6" when they're 5'1". It's just ridiculous. And we need to show that you can be turned on by a lot of things and not just one thing.
Yeah, I like reading Misty. Sometimes I think just because of all of the trauma I've experienced as a woman, it's hard for me to have, this is awful, but it's hard for me to have empathy sometimes for super gorgeous women, because I look at them and I go well, your life is easy. Look at you go, but that is so not true.
No, yeah, everybody's a human being, no matter, what the outside shows, the inside can be completely different, or they have different challenges. And it's time to acknowledge that too. It's time, for me, I get very upset when the discussion becomes that, beautiful women don't, like you said, they don't have problems of their own, or that a beautiful woman says, well, this woman doesn't like me because I'm beautiful, when actually it's likely their personality. We need to open this discussion up, to go beyond the beauty and the jealousy and the judgment and all of those things.
I think what you accomplished in these first 3 stories, really having a whole bunch of women with very different motivations and very different, some women are being victimized, some women are the victimizers, some women, I feel like you've really brought that nuance of hey, women in horror don't have to be the scream queens. They can be the monster. They can be the scream queen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that I love about the horror genre so much, is there's so much possibilities. Why do we want to keep treading over the same ones over and over and over again? There's so much to say, so much to explore, so many things that are scary. It's just really exciting to me to tell these stories in that environment, and maybe get people to think a little differently, or understand something a little more, or maybe someone who did victimize somebody, maybe they'll read a story and they'll go, oh, that wasn't cool that I did that. I just like the possibilities of it.
As longtime Gail Simone fans,
yes.
It feels like this year has been a celebration of everything you can do. You're getting to do so much right now within comics and prose. You got your Red Sonja novel
and video
out.
games.
Video
yes.
games. You're doing a Rebel Moon comic, Uncanny X-Men. We were at a Minor Threats panel earlier. How are you feeling energy-wise right now?
I'm feeling great. The last couple years, I had some struggles. I had to have surgery in December. I'm recovered from that. Now I'm building my stamina and everything. But I've been at home working the whole time, And now it's, everything is starting to be like, I feel like I can come out and be among people and, have the stamina to deal with all of that. But I'm so excited about all of these projects and the opportunities. And I mean, to be writing Uncanny X-Men, I couldn't even believe when they asked that. I'm such a huge fan. That kept me reading comics during a lot of years where I quit all other comics. And it's just such a privilege. And working with David Marquez on the art has just been an absolute.
Do you find yourself falling in love with comics again?
Well, I never fell out of love with comics, never. But I did quit reading very many comics for a time because there was a time where we were seeing a lot of depowering and raping and mutilating female characters that I just wasn't interested in those stories. I'm interested in stories about survival and telling them from maybe the victim's point of view and not the not the one who vows revenge and anyway.
And I would love to I love that you're going to bring the kissing back to the X-Men. I'm so excited to see everyone make out. That's like my number one thing with X-Men.
Well, when I first was talking to them about doing it, because they were telling we're coming out of the Krakoan era, the X-Men are scattered, and we would like you to write Uncanny. And then we started talking, and I'm like, oh, could we set it in the South, and could it be kind of like Southern Gothic horror, and people were really getting on board with that vibe because no one else was really doing that, and it suits Rogue and Gambit so much to put them in that environment, and the way that and I like writing them sparkling with each other. It's really sexy and cute and all of those things, and then their world gets shaken up by these outliers that knock at the door, and the young mutants that we've created for this series. So it's just I couldn't be happier. And then when I watched the Rebel Moon movie, I saw the Nemesis character and I was like, oh, I want to know more about this character. I hope we get to learn more. And then I get a call asking if I'm interested in doing Nemesis' backstory, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm interested, and that's been really a whole different vibe. Each of these projects I'm doing are completely different from each other, so they've all got their own tones and vibes. And then I think they just announced today, didn't they, that I'm doing a Spawn book, a Spawn book, yeah, so that's, again, a whole different vibe. Really excited about that. And then Misty is just something that, it really speaks to my heart and soul. I've been to the UK lots of times. I love the people there. I love their attitude towards writers and artists and the way they do the publishing there. I love all of it, so it's just such an honor.
And with Misty, you can really tell any kind of story, it seems, with
yes,
a few parameters.
Yes, and that's what I love. And, we can tell, stories even in the subgenres of horror, so I'm interested in kind of exploring into that too a little more.
Well, Gail, thank you so much for chatting with us at Comic-Con in the middle of the exhibit hall. It really means a lot to us to finally have this little conversation. And, man, again, we're just so excited for everything you've got coming up.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Your podcast is great. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you.
And we're all in this together.
Yes.
Amen. Amen. Great place to end. There we go.
Thank you.
And there you have it, our conversation with Gail Simone, which totally happened.
How was it? We don't know.
I think it went great. What is weird is we also don't know how long this conversation with Gail Simone is.
Yeah.
We're scheduled 20 minutes. Sometimes you could steal a little more time. Sometimes you could lose a little time. Like you said, Lisa, flying by the seat of our pants, it makes us feel squidgy. But what doesn't make us feel squidgy is our coverage of San Diego Comic-Con this year. We have on the docket so many incredible creators, and I don't want to tell you all of them because inevitably some of them are going to fall through.
Which
right?
is fine.
That happens. I can tell you that next week we will have a conversation with Wes Craig about Kaya, and we will have a conversation with Jason Aaron about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, which is now out in the world. We're so excited to have the Turtles back with a new #1, and it's such an incredible new #1. And that episode with Jason Aaron, that will be full spoilers about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, could also have some other cool Ninja Turtle creators on it.
Yeah.
And that's all we're going to say for now.
We're spoiled. We've got, I'm so excited for us.
And
you get to listen to it.
at San Diego Comic-Con, this is a tease I'm okay giving, we will be going all in with DC's October event.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, all in. So hopefully you can go to our socials right now and see who will be all in with. But you can also go to our Patreon page, and we have been posting our conversations that we've been having in person at San Diego Comic-Con early in that feed. So for $1 a month, you can listen to probably like a half dozen episodes already, or conversations. Uncut gems. So yeah. Another cool thing, Lisa, is that you've already recorded a conversation with 2080's Thrillcast.
Yeah.
Talking to Steve Morris about the comic book Full Tilt Boogie. And that conversation should be coming out soon.
I don't know when, but I'm really excited for it to come out, even though it's a video podcast. So you'll get to see me forget that I'm on video, and then you get to really watch me and see how impossible it is for me to sit still.
And then sometime after that conversation on the 2080 Thrillcast, you will see me in their feed talking about the Hell Trekkers, another fun conversation with the totally cool Steve Morris.
I feel like I've barely dipped my toe in with 2000 AD, but I dig them.
Yeah.
I've used the word dig already, but they're groovy.
Well, it's the Misty vibes, right? It's groovy, man. You dig it. I love 2080. I love what they do. I'm excited about all the stuff they've got going on in the future. That
you also are excited about everything they've done in the past, too.
Yes. Well, the Hell Trekkers, right? That was a long time ago. And that comic still holds up and is incredibly gross and violent and scary. Pick up the Hell Trekkers. And pick up Misty, the 2024 special, and let us know what you think of it and what you thought of this conversation that we totally had with Gail Simone. And hopefully it's not the last time we have a conversation with Gail Simone.
I would love for her to... I'm going to manifest this. Friend of the pod, Gail Simone.
Yeah, absolutely. She did help us out with our San Diego Comic-Con tips and tricks for surviving that festival. If you go,
it was clear tape. Her tip was clear tape. Am I spoiling it? There's other advice on there too, but she says bring clear tape, clear packing tape.
And I love the reasoning for that. And you can read about it by going to the link in the show notes and visiting our website.
Yeah. And even though San Diego Comic-Con is in the past for you, the future for us, past for you, it's a timeless article. It's good advice for any convention.
Yeah, New York Comic-Con is right around the corner, Baltimore Comic-Con,
And we're going to have our tape.
Yeah, we're going to have our tape.
Another thing that we are really excited about is our next screening with Film Club at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia. We are screening the comic book movie Atomic Blonde on August 18th, which is Brad's birthday.
Yeah, 4:00. Tickets are on sale now. Link in the show notes.
And every time I watch that movie, this will be my third time, I believe, I go, do I get bangs? Would I look adorable with bangs? Or does Charlize Theron always look great and also have bangs?
I think Charlize Theron always looks great, and Lisa Gullickson always looks great, and you would look great in bangs if you choose to have bangs.
I have, low-key brought it up to anybody cutting my hair, and nobody's really jumped on board. Nobody's like, yes.
You have been bringing it up a lot.
It's been years. I've been bringing up bangs for a decade.
And I also know that, on socials, you keep being assaulted by Charlize's bangs in our feed, and I think you're just going okay.
It's really causing a crisis. I might just be stressed. Okay, Brad, though some of our listeners are probably listening as they unpack for San Diego Comic-Con, we have to actually pack for San Diego Comic-Con. So where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
You can find me on most social medias at MouthDork. If you have words of affirmation for our logo, you can send them to Aaron Prescott at A Cool Hand Fluke. And if you have some words of affirmation for our radical banner art and show posters, send them to Karen Chapp at Karen_X-Men fan. Lisa, where can our listeners send their words of affirmation to you?
I'm always accepting words of affirmation at Sidewalk Siren on Instagram and Twitter. If you'd like to spend more quality time with us, you can subscribe to us on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Apple Podcasts, or whatever app you choose. We're everywhere. If you'd like to get exclusive, you can join our Patreon, where you'll get more content, including weekly bonus episodes. We, in actual time, we just dropped an AMA that is truly chaotic.
Let me say this next sentence first.
Okay.
If you'd like to reach out and touch us electronically, you can email the podcast, cbccpodcast@gmail.com. You can visit our website, comicbookcouplescounseling.com, or follow us on all the socials at CBCC Podcast. Somebody said, when Brad says the word electronically, or in our Patreon episodes that center around Sandman, and I go, Sandman created by Sam Keith, Neil Gaiman, and Mike Dringenberg. They're like, when you say Dringenberg that way and electronically that way, are you channeling Oprah? And
results inconclusive.
I don't know.
We don't know.
If I am, subconsciously.
You can give us a gift of 5 stars on Audible or Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to do an active service, why not rate a review of the show while you're there?
Yes, please.
Also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a comment and we will eventually see it and post it, unless it's hurtful. I mean, it can be criticism.
We don't mind criticism.
But we don't want our feet.
But we need those 5 stars. Like, give us 5 stars and then give us your criticisms, but give us those 5 stars.
Oh, yeah.
So until next time,
hold
friends.
on. I have one more thing to say.
Scheisse.
We're fluent and receptive in all 5 love languages. It really warms our hearts and helps the pod.
So until next time, friends, keep your love tank full.
And your psychic rapport open. Doopy doopy.